Hey guys, Roy here. I got this article sent to me by someone on the forums, and I thought about just ripping it apart. Like the first few sentences I read it, I was, oh, this is so bad. This is a really bad article. It's from Rock Paper Shotgun, and usually Rock Paper Shotgun for me is a bit hit or miss. They tend to be a site that one day people, when they quote an article about it, people will go, "Oh, this Rock Paper Shotgun is trash. You align yourself with trash." And then the other time they'll link to it and say like, "Oh, you got to read this paper on Rock Paper Shotgun." So it's hit or miss, but they tend to not really know the intricacies, or at least the writers don't, of what they're talking about. They like surface level stuff, like most journalist websites these days. So I thought it'd be fun to dive in because this one's about action games, and it immediately starts with a guide to spectacle fighters. It already goes bad over there. They even make a joke about the character action game stuff in the front. I'm just winging this. I didn't plan anything, so I'm just gonna read the article. What's so spectacular about these fighters then? It's a spectacle fighter, a genre of mostly third-person action games, they got that right, that focuses on the visual aspect of spectacle of combat above all else. So the spectacle of the combat is the most important part, okay? These are games designed to make you feel and look like a badass for a huge range of freedom in combat options. They also tend to rate your performance with a score, rank, or grade of some kind, usually from D to S. This reads like action games is Bayonetta and Devil May Cry. That's it. That's all it is. Like nothing. You immediately see through the lines like, okay, everything's got juggles, everything's got some combat options, so you get a score. So be stylish. The first screenshot is Bayonetta, and the second one is DMC5. And the highest grade is S, sometimes SS or SSS. What does the S stand for? Answer is I don't know. I don't think anyone does. Actually, I'm writing an article right now about ranking systems. Let me quickly grab my notes from that. Because I actually wrote it down where the S is from. There's a lot of weird research stuff about that. I'm just scrolling all the way down because this is a pretty long article. It's not finished yet, so keep it in your pants, guys. History of the S rank. The S stands for Shu, which is a Japanese word for exemplary, which is used in the Japanese grading system. It kind of replaces the A plus in the American grading system. And the first game we think like that I've managed to find that did an S rank was KOF 94 in 1994, because it's the only one about that has an S rank in it. Though the word demons in Yu Yu Hakusho in 1990, it also had an S rank grade, but they were like the level of difficulty of the foe. So you had like C level, B level. This one was S. And Real Bout Fatal Fury in SNK from SNK in 1995 was the first one to use S, SS, and SSS. So that's pretty cool. Back to the badass article. Just got that one. So yeah, we know what it stands from. There's actually one video out there somewhere that says it's from a Led Zeppelin concert that had S rank seats, which was in somewhere like 1940, and that apparently got hooked in Japan. And it's a really clickbaity video. It even has Dante with tits as a thumbnail. It's really funny. Don't watch it. Don't give the guy money. All right. So they're just action games. Well, sort of. I'll admit that the definition of spectacle fighter is a little vague. Typically, you're looking at a combination of deep combat system, an in-depth scoring system, and a higher than normal level of difficulty. Yeah, it's really, again, taking the middle road of just Bayonetta and Devil May Cry, because a lot of games don't really have that many or in-depth scoring systems I'm starting to figure out. Be aware that these aren't games that work well with a keyboard and mouse. Debatable. I believe some of the best Devil May Cry players prefer the keyboard and mouse because you have easier access to all the keys. I actually once played with it's sort of a combination pad. You have a thumbstick and a mini keyboard, and that was it took some adjusting, but you have so many options instantly available at your beck and call. And once your muscle memory gets used to that, it's pretty cool. So yeah, you want to use a controller. Suboptimal controls combined with the unusually high difficulty is just asking for a bad time. I like how it went to not difficulty doesn't matter at all to the games are sort of difficult to unusually high difficult. All right. This is another Dark Souls thing, is it? No, I swear. Though there are similarities, Spectacle Fighters are much more about learning an intricate combat system and less about playing a character's stats, like some kind of nerd. I like how they just... What? You're writing about video games. You are a nerd. I'm a nerd. I mean, look at this hair. I look like a crazed Einstein. I really need to go to the hairdresser. Yeah, this is super casual wear, by the way, so don't take it too seriously. Just having little Ryu as my guest. Unless about playing character stats as some kind of nerd. One of the more obvious differences between these games and regular action games is that where action games make you, rather your character, a total badass by default. Newcomers to Spectacle Fighters typically only look as impressive as the player's skill level allows. It's difficult to make Batman look inept in the Arkham games, but a newbie in Devil May Cry is easy to spot. This is true. This is actually true. But I don't see how this, and this is just bad writing, I don't see how this correlates to the Dark Souls stuff. A bad Dark Souls player, a new Dark Souls player looks like an idiot, and a good Dark Souls player looks really good. So that's not really a differences between Dark Souls games and action games. The biggest difference is stats. Other than that, they're pretty similar. They got a lot of crossover. I do like that they mentioned the Batman games. It shows that he at least tried to, okay, I got Devil May Cry, Bayonetta, Dark Souls, like the big names. Batman. I wonder if they're going to call out DMC, as in the reboot, and if they're going to mention any obscure PS2 game. I doubt it, but I think they'll mention DMC, because that's always the journalist thing, like, oh, we loved that game. So what you're saying is that I'm going to look and feel awful when I first start these games. Yeah, actually on point. Exactly. Wait, no, I mean, sort of. My point here is that these games go to great lengths to reflect your skill level visually as well as mechanically. One way to do this is to stress the importance of replaying the game several times and gradually increasing difficulty levels, which can take a bit of getting used to. This is actually a really good point, and yeah, it's just a really good point. A lot of action games, they start out with you being a bit inept, but one part he's kind of missing the mark in a lot of action games. You also start with a handicapped character, like Ryu, our little boy over here. He can't even do a standard Izuna drop combo at the beginning of his game. He needs to upgrade his weapon set. So the character is already a bit held back, while the rest of the game is already like bombastic. But you don't have all your tools yet, all your toys. So your character is also still not perfect, and he's going to feel awful. And they tend to balance this out by just having the first few stages be pretty easy. So, yeah, actually, I'm going to change that. No, you're not a bad player at the start, and you don't look awful or feel awful. I think a lot of people, and that's the appeal, is that when they started playing Devil May Cry 3 or Ninja Gaiden Black, they immediately felt like a badass because of the cool animations, especially Ninja Gaiden 2 with the obliteration techniques. But I do like how he mentions that the importance of replay, because a lot of action games, they don't really end when the game is over. That's actually where it just sort of begins, where you're like halfway, because the higher difficulties, because that's where the fun is. Go on then, where do I start? Well, the Devil May Cry series basically invented the genre. It's still going strong. Okay, it kick-started the genre. Let me put it like that. To say it invented the genre is a big disregard to basically every game that came before it. Like, even in the 3D genre, you have Rising Zan, Die Hard Arcade, and Birdman would probably be able to note a lot. I have a list somewhere in my Google Docs. Devil May Cry was the first one that actually had a big name behind it, namely Capcom. It was the first one that was made by a guy with some reputation, Kamiya and Mikami. And it was the first one that was actually a complete package and really, really good. I'm still really curious. It's one thing I've been discussing about with someone else for a while now is originally Shinobi, the PS2 game, was going to be a Dreamcast exclusive. And it was going to release the original launch that was, I think, about half a year before DMC. And the game was coming on quite nicely. But eventually it got delayed because the Dreamcast got axed and they had to remake a lot of the game for the PS2 and a lot of stuff got cut and the whole development became a disaster. But can you imagine that if that Shinobi, the game that's pretty popular in the action gaming community still, released like half a year before Devil May Cry? I wonder what the impact would have been. All right, let's continue on. They're talking about Devil May Cry. Oh, I know that one. Everybody probably knows the name, especially since I mentioned it 2 paragraphs ago, but the series can be a bit confusing on the surface. There was a reboot, there we go, called DMC Devil May Cry, way back in the far gone days of 2013. That's 5 years ago, man. Six years. But the diehard fans weren't exactly pleased with it. I like how he says diehard fans, not fans or people. No, it was just the diehard people. The game had a lot of flaws. Devil May Cry, Devil May Cry. Yeah, the complaints were mainly focused on the combat system and how it tried to reset the series canon. They don't mention the hair. That's a new one. At least they mentioned that the combat mechanics were a step back. So if the reboot failed, does that mean the series is cancelled? Nope, it's unprecedented, but Devil May Cry 5 was released after DMC and resumes the series' main style, continuity, blah, blah, blah. One thing I'd like to point out about that is that DMC really has this redemption thing going on. First, we had Resident Evil 4, which had a flopped set of products, versions. One of them became DMC, which is sort of a resurrection in and of itself. Then it got DMC 2, which crashed the entire series. Then we had DMC 3 that revived it. Then we had DMC 4, which sort of half tanked it, but sort of kept it interesting. Then DMC tanked it again, and DMC 5 brought it back again, to the point that Capcom was really happy with the sales. Now this is just pointless stuff about, oh, it's on Steam, and there's an HD collection, and you should only play the first and third games. And then note, oh, DMC 2 exists. Are the other DMC games good? DMC 1 has aged like milk, but it's not a bad game. If you're a big fan of classic Resident Evil games, you'll appreciate it more. Strangely, history. Real problem is that DMC 1 is quite simple by the modern action game standards, and I wouldn't want to put it off the genre by starting with one of the older examples. I think DMC 1 is a great game to start with, but if I have to choose between DMC 1 and DMC 3, if you want to get someone into action games, I would probably pick 3. 1 is a much more controlled experience, and I think if you start with that game, a lot of action games will also be really bad, because later action games focus more on just the combat and not the world, the atmosphere, which DMC 1 does excellently. And DMC 1 also has a lot more attention to detail and combat, like the hidden attacks from enemies and how to deal with them, like the spike from the shadow that you can jump on. But it's so old. Oh my god. Devil May Cry 3 is generally considered one of the best spectacle fighters of all time. It's also chronologically the first game in the game. The story's history, winks and nods, you won't miss a lot, true. But it's so old. The gameplay is silky smooth, but there's no denying that the game is showing its age. If that's putting you off, considering the previously mentioned Devil May Cry 5, which is brand new, it's really, really good, though you'll get a lot more out of it if you play at least the third entry beforehand, because of the story. Yeah, that's actually true. I think DMC 3, DMC 5, you will get the most enjoyment out of it if you play the entire series, except 2, because it doesn't reference anything of 2 as far as I know, except that little knife of Lucia somewhere in the background. Yeah. No, but I think I see what you're getting at. Spectacle fighter is another term for Devil May Cry. Alright, sorry. There are plenty of other great games in the genre. For example, you've probably heard of Bayonetta. I have! Great. Did you know that it was directed by Hideki Kamiya, the guy who directed the first Devil May Cry? Wow, they have a screenshot of Vanquish. This is really surprising. Where is this going? Vanquish, number 1. The point is that Bayonetta takes a lot of DNA from DMC, but it's a fresh idea without the burden of the aforementioned series' strange history. It's a game that includes fighting angels, hair magic, amazing weapons, and a bit where you punch God into his son. Easy to pick up without prior genre knowledge. It's worth noting that the game is quite liberal with its representation of sexuality, which isn't for everyone. If that puts you off and you want more over-the-top action or a sci-fi spin, Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance is a great alternative. I am surprised. But then again, Platinum Games is pretty mainstream, so. It's technically part of the famous Stealth series, but while Revengeance contains very light stealth sections and optional, it's more Pacific Rim than James Bond. There's even a bit where you rip a giant sword robot apart, blah, 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 and the fourth wall breaking American Senator. Are there any games that are less ridiculous? Well, not really. That's kind of the point. Though there are some games that ease you into it more gently, like Vanquish. What? That's a game that starts off with a giant robot shooting millions of missiles at you, where you constantly do batshit stuff. Like the first section alone, maybe the cutscenes notwithstanding, I wouldn't call that a less ridiculous example. Like, especially the older PS1 games. Devil May Cry 1 is not ridiculous. Ninja Gaiden Black? I haven't seen any mention of Ninja Gaiden yet, which is really making him angry. I really like this statue. Vanquish is one of the best examples of spectacle fighters in disguise. Nice. And then some history. The thing is that despite Oscar-worthy premise, the story is not a big part of the deal. But before you compare basic low-level gameplay with high-skilled gameplay, the difference is easy to spot. Let me check what they linked. What? Basic low-level gameplay with... Oh. Okay, they have 2 links of Vanquish players that are playing Chapter 1-3 on hard difficulty. One is Mike Kobayashi, the God Hand player. My opinion on him varies. And the other, and he's the example of the bad player. And the good player is really bad. And I mean, really bad. And they're all playing on hard difficulty. They're not even playing on God hard. Yeah, wow. You had my respect and now it's gone. They talk a bit about the plot. Nier Automata, of course. It's a rare example of a spectacle fighter with a genuinely compelling story. I'm actually thinking which... God of War! Like the first God of War game. Fantastic story, personally. What lies beyond these games? You can't really go wrong with anything else made by Platinum Games. Be aware that a couple of pre-Nier games are noticeably less budgeted. But the boss-em-up game Fury, relatively simple, short, sweet foray. Once you started getting used to the basics, it's hard to look past Nioh, the Souls-like genre mashup from the developers in Team Ninja. And finally, the basic but more straightforward adventures can be found in Castlevania Lords of Shadow. Okay. Wow, Steam has a Spectacle Fighter tag, which has 4 games. What? Oh no, there's more. That's only... Generally speaking, the article was less offensive than I thought it would be. But the biggest problem I have with it is that it just doesn't really say anything. It's basically here are you want to play action games, then play Devil May Cry, play Bayonetta, and some Platinum Games games. This is genre. This is not an introduction. This is more like something you could find after 5 seconds of Googling. All right, here's my recommendation for if you want to play action games. You want to get a nice different palette of action titles. 1. Ninja Gaiden 2. Vanquish. Devil May Cry 3. God of War 1, Beautiful Joe, Shinobi, and Painkiller. I think if you play those, then you'll have like a wide array of different fighting styles. Chaos Legion. Add Chaos Legion to that as well, so I don't get killed. But I think if you grab all those, then you'll have a really versatile set of fighting games, action games, whatever you want to call them. Like you'll have games that are really about insane difficulty, shooting, combos, efficiency, a bit of a story-focused games in there as well. I think then you've got a pretty, and you also got a 2D game, which is Beautiful Joe. So I think that's a good list. But this article is just, it's extremely basic, which is kind of sad. Let's see, are there any comments? Yeah, I don't see anything special. Of course, it immediately starts talking about, yeah, but the genre is called this. No. Yeah, okay, this guy basically reads it like, so it's just one big ad for Platinum Games. No, they're not Souls games. Oh, by the way, play Neo. What? Yeah, I agree with that guy. There's someone praising DMC, as in the reboot. Someone smartly points out that From Software did their own action game once. A mention of where the fuck is Devil May Cry in your review or in your article. Yeah. Alright, I'm gonna cut this video short. I'll upload it sometime, but meh article. But it's nice that the genre at least gets some representation on bigger outlets. I mean, it's something.